Hello folks and welcome to the paddock here at the Bahrain International Circuit on Wednesday the 2nd of December. News, Lawrence. Oh. Well, the news was yesterday, but it's been kind of breaking and emerging through the past 24 hours.
These last couple of days were supposed to be relaxing, weren't they, between races? And we've had a bombardment of news, and the most recent, of course, is that Mercedes need a new driver, and that driver is sat over there. It's George Russell in at Mercedes. It's taken about 24 hours to 36 hours for Mercedes and Williams to come to an arrangement. But at last, Williams decided to release him for this race.
And that's all because Lewis Hamilton tested positive for COVID-19. He had mild symptoms on Monday, having passed 3 negative tests during the Grand Prix week here in Sakhir. But a close contact of his tested positive over the weekend. Lewis had mild symptoms, as we said, on the Monday, took a test, turned positive. So that is why the need for the musical chairs has happened. Jack Aitken will be taking George Russell's place at Williams. So let's start at the start. Let's start with George. The promotion to Mercedes. It's a huge opportunity for him.
It's massive for him. Earlier this year, Mercedes inquired about his services for next year before they recruited Valtteri Bottas. Williams said no, obviously under previous management. They've gone back again for a second chance, this time obviously just for 1 race or maybe 2 if Lewis isn't back for Abu Dhabi. And this time they came to an arrangement to let him go. I think for George, it's a huge opportunity, like you said, Will, because he can prove to Toto Wolff and the rest of the Mercedes management that he has got what it takes to step up to the World Championship winning team and perform at the highest level.
Now, I know you've been talking to the guys at Mercedes for the last 24 hours, and although Stoffel Vandoorne is the team's reserve driver, and he is flying in, was always due to be flying in after the Formula E test anyway, George was always their preferred option.
Yes, so from the very beginning, Toto wanted to get George in the car just to really give him a job interview, kind of see how he can perform with the very best equipment on the grid. When this opportunity presented itself, almost as soon as they knew that Lewis was okay and he was going to be okay and he had mild symptoms, they got on the phone to Williams to inquire about whether it's possible, because there was some trepidation naturally after what happened last time, but they really wanted George because George is their future. George is the potential person who could replace Lewis Hamilton in the future, and this is the best opportunity, and you don't often get this, to run him in real life in a circuit where he will hopefully be able to show what he can do.
And we all know how disappointed George was with the fact that his potential negotiations with Mercedes for next year were stifled by Williams management earlier on this season. Some comment coming out of Williams, we didn't want to hold him back a second time this year. So it's great news for him, but it doesn't come without its potential pitfalls. I remember back to the year when Giancarlo Fisichella was racing for Force India, as it was then. Stellar season with Force India, had taken pole position at Spa, almost won the race. Was dropped into Ferrari for the last, 5 races of the season, didn't finish higher than 9th.
No, but let's not forget that Ferrari was not a very good car.
Yes, true, and this is the best car in the field at the moment, but there are pitfalls for George. He's got to come in, he's got to step up, and if he's only got 1 weekend, there's not a lot of time to get to know the car, to get on terms with it. Yes, okay, he has understanding of the tyres, he has understanding of what it is to race in Formula 1 in 2020. But this is an entirely different car to the one that he has somehow been dragging out of Q1. This is a car that's been the class of the field. Anything less than the absolute top is or could be damaging.
So to that point, it's close to be make or break for George, really. He's got to deliver this weekend. Like you said, he's got experience with the team. Throughout the year, of course, he races with Williams, but he's often having meetings with the Mercedes guys. They're always keeping this open conversation. Toto and George are always kind of aware of what's going on with each other. George has spent 6 days in that Mercedes since 2017. She's got experience of the car
and the
team. And so hopefully, in terms of all the simple things like the systems, the buttons, all of that, he won't have to learn it from scratch. You remember when Stoffel Vandoorne had to come in? He had to read a massive book at McLaren.
Yes.
He's had to read a book on the plane. George won't have to do that. He can kind of just get stuck in. The other good thing is that he's going to go up against Valtteri Bottas, who didn't perform very well last time out in Bahrain. I know it's a different layout, but I think at this point in time, you could argue that the pressure is actually on Valtteri versus George.
Well, this is it. Who's going to be sleeping easier this week? I'd argue George. He's got nothing to lose and everything to gain. If he gets even close to Valtteri, he's going to look like a rock star. On the flip side, if George gets even close to Valtteri, what does that do for Valtteri's future?
I think it's tough. Obviously, he's probably still going to be in the car next year. No, he has got a contract, so of course he's going to be in the car next year. But I think beyond that,
never say never.
I think we're looking more towards 2022, when both seats at Mercedes are up for grabs in 2022. And if George can improve and impress them in this race and maybe in Abu Dhabi, that might be enough for Toto to go, right, well, that's it, we'll get you in the car next year. He'll take all that experience back to Williams, he'll become a better driver. He's really I think he's got to improve on his race performances, and he knows
his quality performance is outstanding.
Yeah, he's unbeaten, isn't he? It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that up.
Oh, that's the thing, isn't it? He's just levelled, hasn't he? 36 and 0. If he makes it 37, well, that's an immediate indictment, isn't it, on Valtteri? Could you see George ending up at Mercedes and Valtteri going down? It might just be what Williams needs, a driver of Valtteri's quality ending up down there next year.
Well, he had such a great time there, didn't he, beforehand, of course.
Anyway, that's getting way ahead of ourselves. We don't even know if George will get a second race with Mercedes in Abu Dhabi. We'll come on to that in a moment. Let's talk quickly about Williams. I don't want to make it too quick because Jack Aitken, dear friend of us, he's been F1 live post-race show co-host a number of times. He's a great driver, he's a great peddler, he's much loved in this paddock. He was loved at Renault when he was there. He's really loved down at Williams. He gets a shot this weekend, albeit a far harder, far more difficult opportunity. He gets his opportunity in F1.
I think it's really nice for Williams to actually give the reserve driver an opportunity. We often have reserve drivers in their role and they don't, they get overlooked, i.e. what's happened at Mercedes. But for Williams to give Jack this chance, he's driven the car in FP1 in the Sakhir Grand Prix back in Austria. So that will help him again settle in, and it'll be good for them to kind of assess where he's at, because it was looking at some point that Jack might have missed his opportunity in Formula One. So this is a real chance for him to kind of show what he can do.
And Jack's had a really hard year in Formula 2. If you just go on the base statistics, P15 at the moment doesn't look great, but he's had a really hard year with Campos, who haven't got on terms with those 18-inch wheels. When you look back through his career though, and you look at how highly valued he's been by Renault, how highly valued he is by Williams, the work he's done in the simulator, the work he does behind the scenes. He's professional, he's diligent, he's hardworking, and he's fast.
And he gets the job done. And I think at the moment with Williams, they're still trying to get Haas. They're still trying to get Haas in the Constructors' Championship, beat that tally of 3 points. They want someone who can hopefully give them the best chance to do that. And looking at what's available, I genuinely think Jack's a great opportunity.
You talk about the fight with Haas. We must also mention, of course, Romain Grosjean will be replaced this weekend by Pietro Fittipaldi, another F1 live post-race show. I'm losing co-hosts. He has a big job on his hands this year as well. Hasn't driven this iteration of the car, hasn't raced in a long time, but quality kid, used to being dropped into a championship and just told to go for it. But for both Jack and for Pietro, a real uphill battle for them this weekend in cars which aren't competitive, aren't like that Mercedes going to be gunning for Q3, potential pole position, potential podiums. It's going to be a really hard weekend for both of them.
I think for both of them, their main aim is to perform strongly against their teammates, because relatively speaking, when you're going down that back end of the grid, to expect them to be even challenging for points when that car hasn't really done so this year would be too much. So I suppose they just want to settle in, do a good job, kind of complete the various programs that the team have asked of them, and just not make a mistake. That's the key.
There is, of course, the question mark of whether this situation, particularly at Mercedes, will be for one or two races, especially as if we look at a driver having just one race, it's not a lot of time to really bed yourself in and do a good job. That second race, everything they'd learned from the first weekend, could be the real barometer of their ability. Will we get that second weekend? Will Lewis be back in Abu Dhabi?
It's nip and tuck. 10 days kind of is around the Thursday off Abu Dhabi weekend. It's feasible that if he's feeling okay, he tests negative, he can get over to Abu Dhabi and still be in time in the car on Friday. But there's lots of ifs and buts. We're still early days. We don't know how he's doing still.
And one of the biggest ifs and buts about all of this is the fact that the COVID regulations, the COVID quarantine rules and isolation rules that exist, I mean, you do have to quarantine when you go to Abu Dhabi. However, Formula One has been allowed a special corridor. The terms of that special corridor are that you have to have been in Bahrain testing negative for 7 days. Failing that, you have to have passed 4 negative tests before that air corridor opens up between Bahrain and Abu Dhabi. If Lewis has tested positive beyond Monday, that 10-day isolation window will take him into the Grand Prix weekend anyway. If he doesn't pass those 4 negative tests, he won't be travelling anyway. That is, there's no getting around that. That's just how the air corridor works. There is a chance that Lewis won't do either of these last 2 races, and I'm sure that the team is ready and prepared for that.
Yes, and I think for Mercedes, the Constructors' Championship's already tied up.
Yep.
Obviously, Lewis has already won the Driver' Championship. So it actually might not be a bad idea to keep George for 2 races. Like you said, get a proper read of his ability. Obviously, Lewis is going to want to be back in that car as soon as possible, and he will 100% get priority. But it's a great position for Mercedes to be in. They've done the hard work now, which is getting Williams to release George. Now they've got the best of both worlds going forward. Just
when you thought this 2020 season had shown you everything, here we are. I remember Lewis earlier in the season was asked, if there's one thing that's going to, cut short your season or stop you from winning that title, what is it? He said it's COVID. It hasn't stopped him winning the title, but it may stop him from seeing out this season. What an amazing turn of events. I can't wait to see how George fares. Can't wait to see how Jack and Pietro do as well. 3 lovely guys who have been handed this amazing opportunity this weekend. It's going to be great fun, isn't it?
I think it's going to be a great race on a great new track with, like you said, so many new faces and so many opportunities, some stories, some really great stories to dig into. And let's hope these guys can kind of show their best.
Excellent stuff. With more news coming to you throughout the weekend from Lawrence and me from Bahrain. That's your lot for now.